Hi, I'm Rosanna Vargas Forbes, and welcome to episode 123 of Art This Week. This week we visit the Modern and speak with Sarah Bancroft, curator of the exhibition Richard Diebenkorn, the Ocean Park Series. Now for Art This Week.
Hello, I'm Caroline Belanger, and today we're at the Modern Art Museum in Fort Worth, and we are speaking with Sarah Bancroft of the Orange County Museum of Art, and she's curator of Richard Diebenkorn Ocean Park Series, and we're delighted that you and the Modern have collaborated together to put on this exhibition. Before we really get into talking about the exhibition and Ocean Park Series, I was wondering what you can tell us for our general audience, just about Diebenkorn in general.
Diebenkorn was an artist who lived in California for the most part, and he came to be known as a quintessential California artist, although he has a national and an international reputation because he's such a fine, magnificent painter. His Ocean Park series was created between 1967 and 1988 when he lived in the neighborhood of Ocean Park, which is kind of nestled in Santa Monica, between Santa Monica and Venice Beach. And it's right on the beach. The marine layer rolls in, and it was kind of a gritty neighborhood, but still very pretty. It just had a down-to-earth vibe. There were a lot of artist studios there when he moved there. And he worked, with natural light coming into the space. And his works, his paintings were abstract during the Ocean Park era, and yet they managed to capture the light and space and mood of his environment.
Now, he was a diverse artist working in abstract expressionism, figurative work, and then with the Ocean Park series became more abstract. How do you think all of those movements ultimately informed the Ocean Park series?
He was still painting figuratively when he moved from the Bay Area to Ocean Park, and then quickly his work shifted, and I think it surprised him as much as everyone else. Certainly people were surprised because he'd been so successful in his figurative practice. And yet here was an artist who, with confidence, vacillated in his style many times throughout his career. He pushed against the tide, and yet each time he found equal success. So I think he was less worried than maybe some other people around him were when he shifted. But if you look at the body of work from the beginning, from his early series, his middle series, and then this last series, there is a through line, even when you're looking at his figurative works, his landscapes, and his portraits. And in fact, this institution has installed right now an abstract painting from his Urbana series, as well as a portrait, a sitting figure, which is his wife, Phyllis. And you can tell it's the same artist, although the concerns in the paintings are very different. So I think his focus in the Ocean Park series was definitely different than in the figurative work that he was doing in Berkeley before he moved here. He didn't want to return either to the previous form of abstraction he had done, and so he really was pushing into new ground, and yet the style is all his own.
Was there some kind of moment that he had where he was like, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to do?
He talks about being in the space he shared with the painter Sam Francis. That was his first Ocean Park space. And originally he worked in a very small room in this building and was working on small figurative work. And then as soon as he moved into a larger space, when Francis had vacated that part of the building, his work shifted. He said the work got flatter, the figure kind of disappeared, and then literally kind of overnight, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna do abstract painting again. It really was quite abrupt.
Now, some people kind of want to call these landscapes or cityscapes. Is that an accurate definition?
Certainly the artist would never have called them landscapes or cityscapes at all. They were absolutely abstract explorations for him. And yet it can't be denied that he was definitely impacted by his environment. And so you see the work, so many people see these works and they think very much of a Southern California environment. I mean, look at this painting with these aqua and marine blues and just pastel tones, warm and cool tones. And that was true across his career. So, the colors and the palette shifted wherever he was working. He was very sensitive to his environment. So it's no surprise that the works kind of capture an essence of what some may think is Southern California, although for him they were absolutely abstract.
What do you know of his technique and how he was able to achieve this layered translucence?
Well, it's just that. He would work and rework the canvases, and sometimes he would aerate the paint. He would scrape and repaint, and the process is the most important part of the composition. I mean, you see the process when you look at this painting, for instance. You can see the underpainting. You can see how the composition has changed, how, you know, it was a very intuitive, improvisational process. There were not studies for these works. He would just create some initial marks on the canvas to get going, and then it would turn into a dialogue with the painting itself. And he passed away in 1993, but in interviews, he spoke about how painful the process was for him. I mean, it was, you know, frustration and despair, and he really pushed through his own boundaries to achieve kind of a balanced composition in the end. But it was the whole thing. I mean, the paintings are documents of their own making in many ways, because you can see the palimpsest of hues and layers and colors, and that was really important to his process. He also thought it was important not to hide mistakes, that a mistake could be kind of an integral part of the composition. It can become one of the most interesting parts, and I think that's also why, you know, it's not pristine. It's this glorious kind of textured, you know, landscape of its own making.
Well, you brought up something interesting in that, discussing that there weren't any studies for these paintings. So I was wondering if we could go take a look at the prints and drawings and how they fit in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what can you tell us about how the prints and drawings kind of fit into his process?
So drawings, collages, prints, they were all very important to his artistic practice, and he was creating these works concurrent with the paintings, and in fact he considered them kind of like a family. When he would work in his studio on a show, he would sit there and make a selection from the drawings that were on his wall as well as the paintings, and it was this important principle that they kind of go out into the world together. One was not lesser than the other. And you can see the drawings really do have the same concerns as the paintings. This is, you know, this one's very washy. This has collage work, collage elements. And if he were stuck on a painting, if we're, you know, hit a problem, you know, came to a dead end, he would often turn to one of the works on paper hanging on his walls and work on that for a while. And he said, you know, it saved him on occasion.
Kind of like a cure for writer's block.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah. Although he didn't consider them just, you know, write-offs. They were still very important. And in fact, as with many artists, there are many more works on paper than paintings. But as I mentioned before, they were never studies for the paintings. They're works of art in their own right. So throughout Diebenkorn's career, he did work in printmaking throughout the Ocean Park era for sure. Although early on, his prints were mostly black and white. And then in the 80s, he pushes into these beautiful colored aqua tints. This is one of his most well-known and magnificent prints. It's really glorious, also one of the largest prints. He had a long-standing relationship with Catherine Brown at Crown Point Press in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and worked with her on these, you know, quite complicated, time-intensive works. And you can see it's still very painterly, even in his printing practice. And you can also see this element of process. He didn't remove the element of process, just raking lines and layers. I mean, it is in every way an Ocean Park work.
So my final question to you is, what drew you to Diebenkorn and the Ocean Park series as a curator and putting this exhibition together? Was there a painting that kind of inspired you?
Remarkably, no one had done an exhibition focusing solely on the Ocean Park work. It's his most celebrated series, and yet there'd never been a large-scale exhibition committed to the whole series with the paintings and the prints and the works on paper, the cigar box lids. So it was a very easy choice, and also the work is so glorious. This is one of my favorite paintings. I mean, it makes me melt. This is from the heart of the series. This is from '75. It's Ocean Park number 79. It's in the collection of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And for me, the paintings are really experiences. You can stand in front of them and they seep out slowly. You know, it's an experience just to kind of watch the flow and mood of the painting. And they are, you know, total compositions. If you look at one part, you're kind of missing out. You really need to look at the whole, and yet there's so much going on. So I find working with the work, the more time I spend with them, the more I get out of it. And I'm hoping that's what the viewers discover as well.
What is significant about this particular scale for Diebenkorn? Because all the large canvases are roughly about the same size.
They are. They tend to be about 100 inches in height. And there is a good reason for that. One, he was a tall man. He was over 6 feet. And so the size was limited by his reach, but also by the size of his studio. So how large of a canvas could he get through the hallway and into the door? And that really determined the scale. And
But he really did, medium-sized work.
He did. I mean, the largest ones are about 100 inches, but then he has small, really small, intimate cigar box lids on which he's made Ocean Park paintings, and he gave those to friends and family. They're very intimate, very small, 6, 7 inches. And then the works on paper really vary as well, but they tend to be more intimate. And I really like that interplay between the small and intimate work and these large, powerful paintings.
He most certainly wanted these to make an impression.
Yeah, for me they feel almost like walk-in altars. They kind of hug you in a way. You stand in front of them and they really do pull you in.
I think I was remarking to somebody else that I don't know that I've ever seen one of these Diebenkorn Ocean Park paintings with another one. I think I've only seen one at a time.
Exactly. That's a very good point. I think that's also why people haven't had this experience of really jumping into this body of work, because the work was very successful, which means there's this great diaspora. Every major museum has one. There are only 2 institutions that have more than one Ocean Park painting. So there's never been the opportunity for people to really see the work amongst their siblings. And it is amazing to see them all together.
We want to thank Sarah for speaking with us. The exhibition is up through January 15th, 2012. More information on Richard Diebenkorn can be found at diebenkorn.org. And for more information on this exhibition, visit themodern.org. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching. And now, for more information, yeah, wow.
Keep going. Work through it.
And for more information on this exhibition, visit themodern.org.
The thought of you I can't avoid. Sitting